Guys, so I just spoke to Kenny. He said the MRI gave no answers. The next step, I think they said they were going to do an androplasty to see if they get answers through there, or most likely they will. They think, but that means they have to put her out.
Armando just said the sentence no parent should ever have to say, "I don't want to lose her." And suddenly, every argument, storyline, and reality television controversy surrounding this family became completely irrelevant. Armando's 13-year-old daughter, Hannah, reportedly suffered a terrifying medical emergency in Mexico after experiencing weakness and drooping on one side of her face. She was rushed for treatment, transported across the border, and ultimately airlifted to an intensive care unit in Phoenix after doctors discovered bleeding in her brain. Kenny was able to remain at Hannah's bedside. Armando, however, said immigration restrictions prevented him from crossing into the United States to be with his daughter. That detail is what transforms an already horrifying medical crisis into something almost impossible to process. In his latest video, Armando begins by saying he has just spoken with Kenny. He tries to deliver the update calmly, but his body is telling the real story before his words fully catch up. He looks down. He grips the pen in his hand. He pauses repeatedly and struggles to explain what the doctors are planning. The MRI, according to Armando, did not provide the answers they desperately needed. Doctors were now discussing another procedure. Armando referred to it as an angioplasty and explained that Hannah would need to be put under while doctors entered through the neck area to investigate what was happening. Several viewers with medical backgrounds suggested that he may have been describing a cerebral angiogram or a similar catheter-based procedure used to examine the blood vessels, but the exact terminology is not the important part here. The important part is that doctors are still searching for the source of the bleeding. And while everyone was focused on the frightening details of the procedure, the most devastating moment came when Armando stopped talking like someone giving an update and started speaking like a terrified father. He said the procedure sounded scary. Then his voice broke. He covered his eyes and admitted, "I miss my baby girl." That was the moment the emotional wall completely collapsed. Armando began crying and said, "I don't want to lose her." There was nothing polished about it, nothing calculated. No dramatic editing was needed. This was a parent trapped on the wrong side of a border, receiving potentially life-changing information through phone calls while someone else sat beside his child. The repeated pauses were not confusion or evasiveness. They looked like emotional overload. When people are terrified, they often cling to medical words, timelines, and procedural details because facts create the illusion of control. Armando was trying to explain what the doctors might do, how long Hannah might be under, and where they might enter her body. But beneath every detail was the same unbearable truth. He could not hold her hand. The response from viewers was massive. Within hours, the video had gathered tens of thousands of reactions and more than 20,000 comments. Parents shared their own experiences with brain bleeds and neurological procedures. Nurses attempted to explain that catheter-based testing can help doctors locate abnormalities and, in some situations, treat them during the same process. Others offered practical help. People in Phoenix asked whether Kenny needed food, coffee, transportation, or somewhere to rest. Some suggested contacting the Red Cross. Others called on TLC, immigration officials, and public representatives to help reunite Armando with Hannah during the emergency. And that is the part that should make everyone stop and think. Immigration policy is usually discussed through statistics, slogans, and political arguments, but in this situation, it looks like an empty chair beside a child's hospital bed. Armando is not asking for special treatment because he's a television personality. He's asking to be physically present while his young daughter undergoes a frightening medical investigation. There is no reality television villain in this story. The villain is uncertainty. It is waiting for a phone call. It is hearing that the MRI gave no answers. It is trying to understand a complicated procedure while imagining everything that could go wrong. And it is knowing that your child may be frightened while you are unable to reach her. Armando ended by thanking everyone who had donated, prayed, shared messages, or supported the family. He called the people helping them angels and said the love had made the situation slightly easier, even though he still could not be with Hannah. For now, the family is waiting for answers, and Hannah remains surrounded by medical professionals and the people who were able to reach her. But should an emergency involving a critically ill child automatically create a humanitarian exception for a parent, regardless of immigration complications? Tell me where you stand in the comments. Keep Hannah and her family in your thoughts, and subscribe to Truth Talk Tribe for the next verified update.